Here with Jeff Messer, 2023 ABCA Hall of Fame inductee, heading into 38th season with Slippery Rock, but over 1,000 wins. 2022 was a great year with 33 wins and 13th regional appearance. So, Coach, thanks for jumping on with me.
Thank you, Ryan.
Banner year for Slippery Rock with Coach Mitchell Tree got Assistant of the Year. You're going into the ABCA Hall of Fame. You go to the regionals again. So, just talk a little bit about where everything's at with Slippery Rock right now.
I think we're in a good place. Like I said, we transitioned a few years ago from the grass field to the turf field, and honestly, I think it changed everything for us. I'm a grass guy. I'm a naturalist. I like the grass, but I can honestly say it'll extend my coaching career that I don't have to grab the rake and drag the field. Where when it pours at night, I just roll over and get ready to go the next day. But it just allowed us to develop, our players much more in our practices. We could go game-like situations where, previously for probably, I don't know how many years, we built the stadium in 2003 and it was all grass. And probably in 2015, the outfield started to get some wear and tear, drainage collapsed. So we weren't able to use the outfield any day that it rained. So when we got the turf, it really helped us with our development of our players. January, February, if it's a decent day, we're out there. And like I say, coaching staff wise, my son came back from UVA a number of years ago and is our recruiting coordinator. And we have I'd say a veteran team returning. We did lose one of our pitchers in August to the Twins, but overall we have a pretty good nucleus of players coming back, and we're optimistic going into the 2023 season.
Shippensburg have turf, so you guys are opening up.
They do, actually.
Yeah, I mean, how great is that, not having to travel, that Shippensburg's got turf now too?
Yeah, we traditionally for 25 years, maybe more, we were in Florida or in Cary or somewhere, and then Matt Jones, it's the coach at Shippensburg, is one of my former players, and they just got turf, this year. So, when they gave us the invitation, we were like, yeah, definitely, we'll rather come there, than travel, 12, 15 hours down south. And then, and again, it allows us to play at our place much earlier with the turf as well. We'll open up the following weekend, at our place, hopefully, because you got some of those New England teams that, they think they go to Slip Rock. They think they're in Boca Raton. They think they're going south. I mean, it's still going to be 40 degrees, but, you're playing on turf and you're getting them in. So.
Yeah, for anyone that hasn't competed in that part of the world or the upper Midwest, you don't realize that a 40-degree day there feels like 70 degrees.
Beautiful day.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful day.
And the turf just makes it feel that much warmer. I mean, because your feet aren't getting wet. Like I say, as long as it's sunny and not even sunny, as long as it's not snowing, for the most part, you're going to get them in. And we usually don't try to start a game, if it's not, 35 or above. That's not to say that you won't go to Erie on a bright sunny day and with the wind chill off the lake, that it's not going to be below, 32, but everybody plays in it. We're used to it. It just makes it a lot easier now, with it being turf.
How do you re-engage after each season? You've been doing this a long time, and how do you re-engage after the year's over with, try to get ready for the next fall?
Yeah, we, at the end of the season, we'll sit down, evaluate, the guys that are coming back, what we need. And it's kind of been a little bit different the last few years because you've had, the COVID year. And then if you had somebody that redshirted before that, you actually have some fifth year, maybe even a 6-year guy that's playing. So it's really backing up, on your, you're bringing in your freshman class or bringing in new recruits. And, you don't have to be a wizard to know that you're going to be much more successful or more competitive with a 22 or a 23-year-old than you are a 17 or an 18-year-old. The blue chip 17 and 18-year-old guys are going with O'Connor at UVA. They're not coming to Slippery Rock. So it's a little bit different on that end. We just got 10 commitments for next year, probably our biggest freshman class, and I think it's starting to cycle through somewhat. And we'll still mix in with the tracer or the tracker, at the end of the year, looking for a couple upperclassmen. But again, it's just evaluating what you have coming back, guys that might be graduating early. We've been pretty successful academically, so our guys pretty much are on schedule. But we have a number of guys this year, because of that fifth year, that actually came back for graduate studies. But it all just depends on, what you're losing and if you're going in the right direction. And I think our guys have been going in the right direction, and it's just now a matter of trying to replace those players. And some guys you're not going to replace. It's going to take a number of years before you get there.
With your evaluation of the program after every year, do you have like a checklist that you use, or just going off feel because you've had so much experience coaching as long as you have?
We'll look at both. Definitely it's a feel, thing. And if we can better ourselves, we're going to, better ourselves. But we have to be realistic as well. We have one scholarship for the program, for the entire program. So there might be, a shortstop in Maryland that we like, but realistically, are we going to, because we like the same players that a lot of Division I teams like, or that other teams in our conference like. So again, we have to be realistic, try to push the school academically, try to push the program. And I'm sure that, some of the key words you hear all the time now, it's got to be the right fit, for us and for the player. But again, we try to bring guys in that are going to have a chance to play right away. And like I say, this year, we have some upperclassmen, quite a few upperclassmen that are going to be graduating. So we know that we can actually, when we're telling somebody that they can come in and have a chance to play right away, they're actually going to have that opportunity.
How good is it to have Billy back? And how beneficial was it for him to go to UVA for a little bit and then come back?
It was perfect for him. I mean, I'm on a couple committees with, Tim and Corbin and with Kevin McMullen at UVA. And, Kevin grew up in the PSAC, as a player and then as a coach. So, and I wasn't, really thinking Billy was going to pursue, coaching. And then his senior year here, he played for me, as you did for your father. He out of nowhere, left field, said that he wanted to get into coaching. So I took him and one of our captains. They decided to go to the ABCA their senior year, and had a great experience. Loved the coaching side of it. I think the exhibit hall got him. So
that's a pro tip for any coaches out there that have some players that you think might want to coach. Bring them to the ABCA. I think that's how we all got hooked. Is coming to the
no-brainer. You taking the Nashville?
Yes.
This one coming up, the exhibit hall, and and you're kind of in awe. I'm still in awe after all these years when you go and you listen to the clinicians, and there might be a high school guy on stage, or somebody that you're meeting down at the restaurant or whatever that, is as knowledgeable, as any Division I coach. And then, I mean, it's just so many coaches. It's just amazing, that there's that much, many people involved, in baseball. But it was good. Like I say, when our assistant position opened up, it was a part-time position, and, UVA is UVA. And he was the baseball ops guy there. And, next thing would have been looking for a volunteer or assistant, at the D1 or D2 level. And he just felt more comfortable, I think, at, the Division II level, where, he saw what I did basically, and making most of his games. Whereas also he saw a Division I, cycle where they're out on the road quite a bit, and he just thought, that the Division II fit might be better. So, and it's worked out for him.
But if you don't go experience that, you don't know that either. Like, it's great that he got a chance to see that, because you don't know on that side of things until you actually get in and start seeing how it works. You have no idea the time commitment that those guys are putting in.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was Tim that recommended he'd go baseball ops, just so I think Tim started at Division III also, and that, basically you're wearing a lot of
You have
different
your hands
hats.
in everything in that
So
position.
everything that you have to do, and that's Division II or Division III. You probably have to do a lot of different things where it's not going to be specifically one area. And so that it was a great experience for him. And he went through the format here of 90 coaches applying for a $10,000 job. Uh, and it worked out. And like I say, he's taken over as our recruiting coordinator, and I pretty much just sell the deal with the final thing. And I still enjoy getting out and watching kids also in the summer. But it's been a real, I mean, well, as an assistant coach, you're putting 80 hours in at certain times, and other times you're not. But it's worked out very well for us.
And he grew up around the program. Like, he knows all the side stories that maybe somebody else that didn't grow up around your program knows. Much easier for him to talk about the program because he's been around you guys forever.
Oh, it's like I've had so many different assistants over the years, and you'll get former assistants that when you tell them grab the laundry and it's time that we got to wash these uniforms, or grab a rake, it's time. It's like they've never heard that or seen that before. But as an assistant, most people coming up, there's a lot of things you have to do, but he knows, like I say, he knows the pros and cons of our program. He knows the area, the travel coaches, that are in the area, and outside the area, which was very good. And also he still has the pedigree of being at UVA a couple years with, one of the best staffs around, and just worked out well for him.
Is it your hope that he takes over the program when you're finished?
I think it's up to, I think that's the direction he would like to go into. And I think that's, why our athletic director last year, Roberta Page, gave him the title as associate head coach. It's never a given. We're a state school, so it's a wide open, but if it gets to that point, and whether it be 1 year, 5 years, whatever, I think he'll go in that direction and put his hat in the ring, and he'll have some experience, definitely.
Did you have an opportunity to coach him before he got to college?
I coached up until his pony leagues, up until he was 13, and then once he reached the
big field,
the 12 to the 13,
the big field.
I pretty much sat back and watched. So he was under, and that's probably the hardest thing, when you're watching other guys coach your son. But it was a good experience. Like I say, the high school was right in our town, so most of the times, I could work our practice to where I could see most of their games, from his freshman year on. And then he had to make a decision. He had to make a decision coming out of, played on the Allegheny Pirates. It's our premier
program.
Travel team.
Great program.
Yeah, and he was with a bunch of good guys, a couple guys that actually made it all the way, and he had some opportunity coming out. I thought for sure that he was going to leave and go to Winthrop with Joe Hudak, who was there at the time, and went down for the visit. I mean, I was ready to stay, and I knew Joe coming up through when he coached in the area here, and listened around the corner when he made his decision over the phone. But he, there was some other places, Division I, and he didn't get caught up into that, and thought his path would be better, at the Division II level, where he'd have a chance to play. And I think everybody would like to play at the Division I level. But again, there's definitely, opportunities maybe to play sooner at the Division II level than going to Division I. But like I say, I didn't coach him up to 13, and then I didn't coach him again until he got to college here.
Yeah, love it. You guys started 11-0 and then lost 3 in a row. I mean, you start out great, and that happens during the season. But did you do anything different after those 3 losses?
I don't think so. I don't. It's with the scoring system and all that in the NCAA. You don't want to lose any game, but realistically, when you haven't been outside a whole lot. You try to keep an even keel, to where, win's a win, and that you need to win, when it comes down to the numbers at the end of the year. But at the same time, you're just trying to get ready for conference. And basically, for the most part, you're not going anywhere unless you're successful in our conference. And that's a very, very competitive conference. And, probably those first 18 games last year, I think it was 16, 18 games before conference, you think you know what your weekend rotation is, but it always changes. It always changes before that conference opener. So we didn't really change anything. It was just a matter of trying to get our strongest unit, team, ready to open up against conference play.
Year 13, getting ready for the regionals, was that different than year one? I mean, your prep for the NCAA tournament, is it different year 13, 13th time going as opposed to the first time you go?
I don't think so. I think it's just as exciting. I mean, your players are new, so it's their first time, so they're excited. You're trying to not have a lot of highs and lows. You're trying to keep them even keel, but they're excited. The coaching staff's excited. The community's excited, and the conference or the region is significantly stronger than it was 20 years ago. It's just but you're not going anywhere.
COVID, you talked about it. You think COVID had a lot to do with that? Now we have older players. The transfer portal's, in it now. I mean, I just all the colleges that I go watch at every level, it just seems like this is the best time for college baseball.
I agree. I mean, I think, we backed up a little bit with the COVID, so you had some mature players. I think that's going to even out a little bit, but now with the portal, that portal's already exploded, here in December, and come May, it'll be twice as much. So it's going to continue to be, a strong conference and get stronger each year because teams are definitely reaching out, some of those Division I players that not so much even disgruntled, but, maybe looking for something different, a grad year for engineering or something that they're looking to do. And I think the conference, probably the biggest transition in our conference over the last 5 years, 10 years have been our private schools. We always had state schools and everybody was pretty much on the same level when it came to scholarships. But with the private schools entering, that changed the complexion a little bit, which was good. It was a good thing, and it made the conference that much more competitive. And like I say, with Shepherd even leaving, their conference a few years ago and coming into PSAC, that was another addition that made another strong team in our region. So, the regional is the regional. You're not going anywhere. Everybody's aspirations are to go to Cary, but you're not going anywhere unless you get to the regionals to begin with. But once you get there, anybody can win. And, so I think it's just as exciting as it was in '89 or whatever our first one was.
With your staff and your players, with social media, the phone, the computer, how do you help them kind of stay away from some of the outside noise that's out there?
As much as possible, we try to limit the social media. There's no phones or allowed anywhere during our practices. But being realistic, it's 2022, and that. But there is an emphasis put on restriction, social media, by our sports communications department from day one. They meet with our players, but then again, there's some really good things out there that they might be listening to a different podcast on something, and but you just got to monitor it, and they know, and they have to know the consequences, of negative social media, and it may not even be their fault. But so we make them very aware, from the get-go of that, but also it allows us, to send things out to them, whether it's the morning.
What are you using for communication with them? What apps are you using? Apps for communication, or is it just group chat? What?
It's basically they have, and I can't. I'm trying to think of they change like every 2 or 3 years, and it's through our whole athletic department. Cool. And if I had to say the most significant advantage of having your son as the associate head coach, he can take care of the technology. Because I'll be the first to say I'm limited when it comes to technology. But we have the athletic department and all our athletic teams are under the same app, and it has changed a couple different times. But we're able to get whatever we need to get to our players, we're able to do that. And whether it be a Zoom or When we couldn't do team meetings face to face, we would do it over the Zoom. Or like say our daily workout is even though we're together with our workouts, they're online for them too to take a look. And same with their winter program. When they go home, they can monitor that and they can check off. We can check off to see exactly what they're doing.
Where are their phones during practice?
In the locker, in their lockers. They can't be out on the field or in the dugout.
Love it.
Good things just don't. I mean, nothing good is going to come from it. Yeah. Now there are times where one might ask, like, can I have somebody video? We do a lot of video anyway, but they want it on their personal phone. Yeah. So we'll allow that where they want to do something individually, or one of the pitchers wants something, but. For the most part, we ask them to keep the phones, pre and post, practice. And for the most part, they're good about that. And it's pretty much just the new guys coming in. You just got to make sure. And usually the upperclassmen service that, even more than we do. We don't even have to say too much about it. We say it once, and then our upperclassmen police that if there is something that, needs to be said.
Yeah, that was the best thing we added in was no phones during meetings and meals. Meals was a big one, and forcing them to talk to each other on the road when we would have meals. That was a big one for us. And they didn't like it in the beginning, but then it was like, okay, they saw value in it because they're actually having conversations with their teammates instead of looking
without question, because otherwise the social media would just take over. And then how there's some kids in your program, they don't communicate real well, or they haven't communicated real well. So it's almost, like you
they've
say,
never developed that skill.
To talk to their teammates.
Yeah, you have to help them develop that skill because they've never had to develop that skill before.
Exactly.
Can you go over some of your responsibilities for the ABCA? I know you've had a ton of them, but can you just go over kind of how you started and everything that you've done for us, because you've done a lot for the ABCA?
Well, the ABCA has done a lot for me. I've had a lot of people mentoring me. Over the years, the Kylis family, Dave and Craig, been outstanding. I think I talk to Craig more about hunting than I do about baseball. But it's been my second or third family, whatever. But I started out, just going to I think my first ABCA convention, I was at Oklahoma City with Charlie Lotus and as an assistant there, and I think it was San Diego, but went and I was just in awe. And I said, boy, this is great, and stayed with it, kept going to those conventions. Really wasn't on any committees or administrative in the beginning. And then a few guys that, got me involved in the Division II side of it. Joe Roberts down at Armstrong Atlantic at the time, Irish O'Reilly that was up at Lewis, even Art Fairchild at Shippensburg said, hey, you want to do this? And then I started working the Yes clinics, for years down in Montgomery when they, for Division II, we did that. And progression, got into, some of the Division II leadership roles, and then took over as the Division II chair. And from there went into the management side, so to speak, and just sat back, my first year and just watched, some of the guys, what they were doing. And again, I'm still in awe, whether it was my first year, my 38th year. And, I say the most interesting year for me definitely was when you're second vice president, when you're putting the speakers together. And, when you're coming up through, you're thinking, we'll put some speakers together. But then you cross up and you're thinking, okay, I got to get Division I, Division II, Division III, JUCO, pro guys, high school guys, and just very, very fortunate that, that I had a lot of help doing that as well. And, it was just a great experience and an opportunity to meet a lot of people, a lot of good people that are I had people, I didn't have a problem at all finding speakers. It's just finding, the ones that you wanted to, so you didn't have too many hitting guys or too many pitching guys. But always had guys that were, whether it be Mark Johnson, Texas A&M, I remember my first year coaching, probably the two most influential guys, and I saw my first year, and it was like, two gods, Mark Johnson, Texas A&M. We played down there for a series. we played out when Augie was Garita was out of Cal Fullerton, and even went up with John Anderson, played up in Minnesota, and I'm thinking, boy, this is what I want to do, and it just, to have that experience early, is probably what spearheaded me going into the field. And like I say, you're gonna take your lumps, early. And like I said, when I left Oklahoma City, they went from Division I that year to NAI the next year, because Abe Lemons thought he could win better, in basketball, and he did. He won like the next 2 or 3 NAIA championships. But actually, I got the job here at Slippery Rock probably because of my education, my background from Springfield College in physical education, and the baseball was a secondary component they looked at. And, just had to tell them I could whitewater raft and I could hike and bike and all that stuff to get in, and thought we'd be here a year, but it definitely worked out. And then, like I say, you get to the president of the ABCA, that's the cream, it's just on top. And, but like I say, I'm so glad that I got involved with the ABCA, because more of the friendships, that I've made, with other coaches and good people. And like I say, it's there's so much.
They are stewards of the game. You get in the room, you get in that board meeting room, and they are stewards of the game, and they just really do care about it and care about each other. Like, that's the thing that always sticks out to me, how much those guys love each other in that room.
Oh, you get in. When I first got in the board meetings, and I'm looking, I'm like, why am I here? You're looking at Gene Banks, you're looking at Mark Johnson, you're looking at Keith Madison, you're like, why am I here? And it's definitely a fraternity coaching, but the board of directors, it's just been a special time, and they're so supportive. And it all came down directly from Dave Keilitz, when I first started, and then Craig didn't miss a beat, and it's just been a great experience.
Who nudged you to get into coaching?
What's that?
Who nudged you to get into coaching? Or is that you?
Probably my inability to play pro ball.
Mine too.
I came out of Springfield College and actually played for a Hall of Famer, ABCA Hall of Famer, Archie Allen. And I was, he was there a couple years. And then my 2 other coaches, Harvey Shapiro, who still coaches.
Harvey.
Great guy. And Harvey was probably as much as anybody influential. I left Springfield disgruntled, that just a bitter student athlete, that I wasn't going to the next level because of my own doing, and suggested or got me involved. He was coaching the Dutch national team, and got me in an opportunity in Amsterdam, because I was ready to say, done with baseball. I'm just going to go straight teaching, and was able to play a year over there in Amsterdam, and still had the passion, still had the love, came back, took a lot of different jobs. And if I had found a teaching job in high school, I may have stayed at that level in Massachusetts, but couldn't find a job at that time, and ended up taking a job with Dave Joust, who was at Westfield State, and drove like 30 minutes a day to get to practice. It was Division III competitive. And Dave was very influential as well. His roommate at Amherst, he went to school at Amherst when I was at Springfield, didn't even know we played against one another. But his roommate was Dan Duquette, who I grew up with my entire life, playing summer ball with. And then Dave bounced around, or he was at Barton or Atlanta Christian at the time when I started here. Then he went pro, with Dan. He started coaching. I think he's with the Nationals now, but he was influential as well. But Harvey Shapiro was a big part of it. And then just a local guy, from Berkshire County in Massachusetts, kind of took me under his wing early. Dr. Bob Coakley he was one of our legendary coaches in the state of Massachusetts, and thought I'd like to do something like he did.
Do you feel like it helped you being an assistant to start?
Oh, definitely. I was I didn't know. I was wet behind the ears. When even with Dave, my first year at Westfield State, I thought I was pretty good. I had no idea. And again, that was at the Division III level and very, very competitive. I think he was making $500. I was making $300. But it was great baseball. And the kids, they wanted to play baseball. That was the thing. And it was a small Division III conference. And then I got fortunate. Charlie Lotus took a chance on me. I'm a small little town guy out of Massachusetts, and his assistant at the time was Ted Cox, who had played with the Red Sox a little bit, and one of his assistants, and went in a different direction. And I was trying to go back for my master's at United States Sports Academy down in Mobile, and part of that program is an internship in coaching, and found out that the internship that I was going to do was going to be at Division I, Oklahoma City, if possible. And Charlie, the salesman that he was, called me and said, "Do you really want to go to Mobile?" And I said, "I just want to get into coaching." He says, "Well, let's put Mobile on the burner. Come on out here to Oklahoma City. You can be my assistant, and I'll get you your master's while you're out here." And I got my master's in counseling when I was there, and then saw the big world. I mean, we had, I think, the toughest Division I schedule that year. I mean, we played everybody: Texas A&M, Texas, Lamar, went to West Coast, Minnesota, and it was just a great experience. And
Evansville and Oklahoma City used to be in the same conference way back.
What's that?
When my dad first got to Evansville and Oklahoma City used to be in the same conference.
Yeah, because we played in Evansville.
Yep.
That was one of that old field, the big old field with the brick.
Field. It's still there.
Yeah.
The Otters play there. That was my one summer of professional baseball of independent league. I played high school, Legion, college, and professionally in that stadium. So I have a very long love affair with Bosse Field. I love that stadium.
Oh, the roots there and just the history. Yeah. But I can remember going there for the weekend. And it was one of our I was on the road. Passenger
vans. My dad loves telling those stories about getting back at 4:00 in the morning, having to drive the 15 passenger vans back from Oklahoma City to Evansville.
All I remember every time I came home, whether it was from the West Coast or from down in Texas, or my wife would be like, "I'm moving east of the Mississippi with you or without you," one or the other, because we were on the road. We didn't have a home field at the time. Oklahoma City basically played their games down at 89er Stadium, and phenomenal baseball. Oklahoma, Texas baseball, that area.
Oral Roberts was great back then.
Oh, played Oral Roberts. I think Koshel.
Larry Koshel
or Vaughn or one of those guys was there then, and
they were right around each other.
Wichita with Stevenson, we'd go up there, and Chemnitz was the pitching guy at that time, and I think Swindell threw a no-hitter against us down to Texas, and it was just a really awakening for me in how much. I had a passion, but I knew this was something that I really wanted to make my life on and my career on, and my wife was on board as long as it was east of the Mississippi, and it worked out. It worked out as a good move.
Guys had really good stats last year, offensively, on the pitching side, defensively. Is that an older group? You attribute that to having an older group last year?
That and the turf. I think the development of being able to do more than we've ever done before, but we had some phenomenal players too. We lost some very good players. We lost a player of the year in Division II in Connor Hamilton, academic All-American. And he was a transfer from WVU, that catcher that, wanted engineering. So, he was in the portal, and, we look at that and we needed a catcher. And I honestly can say I've always thought, and I still do, the pitching is, you're going to win or lose with your pitching staff. But if you don't have a catcher that can handle your pitchers and they have confidence in, so I've gone to the point now where I feel that the catcher is the most important position on the field.
I agree.
Our guys.
Bob and I talked about it. You only gave up 35 stolen bases the whole year. Like that is unreal. When you look at that stat line, that's the first thing that stuck out is like you only gave up 35 stolen bases for the entire year.
It's just such a difference when you have somebody back there, one, that your pitchers trust, They can throw the breaking ball in the dirt and not worry about it, and they don't have to make a perfect pitch. And he was, old school general, to where, he caught most of our games, because if I told him he was going to take a rest, I was afraid he was going to beat me up. And, so we said, we'll let him out there as long as he can. And, but we, that, like at the end of this past year, we were like, hey, we're losing, Connor and Hamilton. And I said, that is a huge loss for us. Do we need to go out? Do we need to go outside portal and find a guy? So we basically looked around the portal and tried to find a guy that defensively, we knew we weren't going to find anybody that, was going to match the offensive and defensive together. We kind of hit the lottery with that. So we're just looking for somebody that was as strong defensively with the receiving and throwing game. And I think we found the right guy. And but yeah, we did have some guys put up some good numbers last year. And basically our catcher, first base, third base, those three guys, were very well. Some of them played 4 years for us, some played 3 years for us.
I mean, how beneficial is that with the turf, from an offensive standpoint of being able to get outside and hit when maybe normally you're stuck inside, you can't see ball flights, that's going to help with your offensive numbers as well.
Oh, completely different, to where even like we can run inter squad games in, the end of January, February, and you can't, there's no comparison, from playing live to hitting inside. And we can hit inside. We have an indoor area that we can hit, but it's still not the same. It's not, your outfielders aren't getting reads. Defensively, if you look at for the most part, if you look at any teams that have high fielding percentages, usually they're on turf fields. And, again, our conference, for the most part, on our side anyway, everybody in our conference now is on turf, except for one school, and they might be too wet to play, and they're playing somewhere else. And then, like I say, on the other side of the state, like Ship just got it, Millersville, East Stroudsburg, a bunch of those schools are getting it as well. And I think everybody loves a well-manicured grass field, but in the
not when you
Northeast,
can't use it ever.
Exactly. Exactly. And I always said, when I was putting down the 50 bags of Diamond Dry, like every other week, that, this stuff's going to kill me by the time I'm done. And it just, you don't even think about it. Now it's just like, okay, and we can get a 3-hour practice in where it's quality practice time, where an hour of it, the guys aren't putting the tarp on, taking it off. They're helping rake. They're doing mound work. We
you
can
don't have
actually
to get up at 6:30 in the morning to get the tarp off, so you're not burning the field up if it's warm.
They're not cussing you the rest of the day. And it's definitely, it was a game changer for us. And like I say, it's development wise, you're just able to take endless, amount of ground balls, or fly balls, and the BP. And there's nothing guys enjoy more than taking BP, in the turtle, and going inside and hitting the cage. Yeah. Every day we can do that now, unless we have snow on the field.
Do you do much with pregame or postgame talks?
We do. I don't spend a lot of time postgame. We'll go over, we have a checklist of things, positive, negative things that I think a lot of times postgame, whether it's good or bad, those guys, I think you get more out of it the next day or the next day of practice. But we will touch on, if it's an effort or intensity issue, then that's handled right then and there. But if it's, something that we may have done poorly, or a philosophy, like usually pregame, we've already talked about the opponent, whether it be first pitch, what to look for, whether, tendencies, so we have the scouting reports. And, it's always, even when I started 40 years ago, I don't think it's changed. It's like, do you throw to a hitter's weakness, or do you throw to the pitcher's strength? You can, the pitcher, unless they're committed, with the pitch that they're throwing, it doesn't matter what the hitter's going to do. So, we'll look at that, and a lot of times it may just be me, the pitching coach, and the pitcher and the catcher, what the game plan is for that. But also we usually,
Because
I learned that.
Bob said your guy ran the game for you guys. Your catcher last year ran the games for you
Oh,
guys, right? You guys didn't have
it
to
was
relay
it was
much. It's
crazy.
awesome,
And
man.
and again, I've had guys where I've called every pitch,
Yep.
and then there's other guys like last year, Connor. I bet out of the whole year there was one or two pitches that we might have disagreed on,
Yep.
and we would just sit down and say, okay, this guy, dead pull, looks early, whatever, and but we would go over, and I think I learned that more with Charlie Lotus at OCU, almost overkill, that we would take every team before we play them, go through every batter with every positional player moving to that batter. And now you see the cheat sheets, where guys are using where they don't need that as much. But I try not to get too analytic. And I want our guys to know the game. But the analytics, they do help with certain things. But yeah, we do probably more in the pregame, and then postgame is usually going to take place the next day, going over our strength and weaknesses. Like the only exception to that is like in the fall, we play 3 or 4 inter squads a week, and we'll put down every single plus minus during the game. The coaches are on the field, then we'll do that right after the practice just to go over the things. But usually after a long doubleheader, because most of our games are doubleheader in the PSAC, that those guys have been there 6 to 8 hours. So at the end of the day, they're cold for one thing, and the coaches are cold. Everybody's hungry, and like I say, unless it's a intensity or an effort issue, usually we're going to go over everything the next day.
Yeah, what are the positives? I mean, the things that stick out for you winning games. What are some of the positives that you normally see out of your squad?
I always say this. I think it's easy to be a player on the field. I mean, the guys on the bench, are the guys that have to be supportive. And I was one of those. I didn't start, all my games early on, and you learn from that. You can be sit on the bench and not be supportive and not be in the game. But I think, at times, I think our bench is as important as the guys on the field. Guys are as intense or more intense than they've ever been. And a lot of it trickles down. They see things that are coming down. They're, whether it be animated or intensity, whatever you want to call it. I think they're hard on themselves a lot of times. And, we try to preach, consistency and not highs and lows. And, the whole thing about you're going to fail, you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. If it's a physical mistake, we're going to have those. A mental mistake, we can't have them. You might make one, but make it early in the year, those first 18 games. But a lot of times that one mental mistake might mean the difference in a game. And it might be a pitcher's mental mistake as well as the position players. I think the biggest thing for us is that I want to make sure all 34 players are all in, and that they're supporting one another through good and bad, because we've had bad as well. Especially, I don't like anybody yelling, throw strikes or, I want to yell it sometimes. But, they're not out there trying to do something negative. And I think people are much more successful when they're comfortable. So if you're comfortable and you're not, I think guys and I think I learned it as a player as well, when you're trying so hard that sometimes that's your worst day.
Try easier. My dad used to say it all the time. Try easier.
And as a player, I didn't realize that. I had the football and the basketball mentality at that time, to where, you had to be intense. You had to try harder. You had to swing harder, and you just tense. You're so tight and afraid to fail. Where I don't think I learned it until Amsterdam after a long night out. The next day I was relaxed and didn't really care that much, and had some of the best at bats going. And it's just more trying to relax our guys to where, like, hey, you hit the ball hard, you hit it hard. Nothing else you can do about it. And but being supportive, being positive, I think are as influential in the success of your players as anything. and that goes with the bench being positive.
Do you feel like
and
kids, kids internalize stuff so much more now because I think of the lack of communication skills? I think they have a hard time expressing themselves. So I think when something goes wrong for them, they just internalize it rather because they don't have a release because they're not able to communicate as well.
Oh, definitely. And when I went to OCU to Oklahoma, Charlie Lotus said, "Well, you can get your master's while you're out here." I said, "Well, do you have a master's in physical education?" He goes, "No, we have this, we have that." And I'm looking through the thing that the only thing I saw that resembled anything I could do was counseling.
Which is great.
And I'm thinking, why the heck am I doing counseling?
That's
And
coaching.
I did, and I'll be honest, I probably use counseling. I'm
My psychology
75%
background
of my
helped
job.
me. Yes, my psychology background helped me more than anything with coaching.
75% of my job, I bet, is counseling more than
yes.
the actual coaching. Because you get at this level, you have some pretty good players.
Yep.
You have to fine tune, but you're not going to change a lot. At this level, it's more, just get them in the right frame of mind, getting some positive feedback because, guys get in a hole, they get a little negative, and then that hole gets bigger and bigger, and it's just too hard to get out of. And then the guy on the bench knows he's going to get his time. He gets in there and he does well, and that poor guy, it's tough. Once you're, the guy behind you is always looking to play, and there's only so much playing time.
Do you have core values for the program? I mean, when you're laying out stuff for the players, do you have core values for the program?
There's do's and don'ts, but I'm pretty much like same with hitting philosophy or a pitching philosophy. I don't cookie cutter. Yeah. There's certain things that we value that are very important. They'll get their list of. I'll use core values that they get that they need to maintain.
Well, standards. We talked about standards. And
right.
I think that's a good reframe is like, here are standards. Now, a lot of that, and that is as good as anybody. Every year, the journey every year is completely different. So sometimes those standards, not that they change, but you may have to adjust on the fly with some of that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't like to change personality because I don't think you do change personality.
You can't.
I mean,
they're going to fight. They will fight you tooth and nail now on it if you try to change their personality.
So again, you're recruiting those guys. They're your guys. So and I think you have to have different personalities on the team. And there's guys that you're going to have to work a little bit harder to like. And to work with them where other guys you don't. We've been successful for the most part that I think that our upperclassmen a lot of times know what the coaching staff is about and what, we try to preach and, whether, it's paying attention at the end of that post-game meeting or whether it's being, if we say 10 o'clock BP, you're there at 9:30 getting early work. You're not there at 9:50. A lot of the things some things are unspoken or unsaid. So the expectations, and again, in the beginning, we probably don't set them as tight because we want to actually see how they react or what
type of leash you're going to have for them.
Exactly. And
that's what I would tell guys. This could be a really enjoyable experience for you with me, but it can be an unpleasant experience too. If you need me to be that person, like I don't want to have to be that person, but if you can't police yourselves and you can't keep yourselves accountable, then I'm going to have to do it. And I don't think you want that.
100%. And that's like, we talk recruiting wise, I tell the student athlete coming in, I said, you want to know, you don't want to know what coach you're playing for. You're going to have some guys that are fire and brimstone in your face, and then you're going to have other guys that, are a little bit, not backwards, but, aren't screamers.
Hands off.
I said, what are you more comfortable playing? And then they'll say, well, what are you, coach? And I'm like, well, I think I'm a teacher. I said, but you can see there'll be times you're going to see the dark side of me if you're not doing something that is, say, a core value or something that is disrespecting, the school program or even your opponent. I'm big on that. Whether it be flipping the bat or whatever it may be, then that's most of the time you're going to see me or you're going to hear me. I'm old school that way, and we give them freedom because it's it's supposed to be a fun game. You want it to be fun, but at the same time, I don't want it to be negative on them, the program or their opponent. Where it's just gonna it's not a good thing. So, but most of the time, like I say, early on we try to see what each guy and what type of personality they have and then just try to mesh everything together.
And that's what Bob talked about. Bob was like, we are blue collar, but we like to have fun, which I thought was a great way of saying
Got to
it.
have fun.
How have you been able to keep Bob around as long as you have?
That's a good question.
He was very complimentary. He was awesome. He was like, I feel like I'm part of the family, the Messer family. Like, it's beautiful.
Oh, he is. He definitely is. And again, I've known Mitch, I think since I came here. I think I was 26 when I started here, and I did a clinic, a local clinic in what's Carmen? He was with the Mets forever. Carmen Franzone, he did a clinic, and Mitch was there, and we hit it off from day one. And I can tell you this: there's never a dull moment, and I will put him up. At 74 years old, I'll put him up with any catching guy around. He works with our catchers, and our catchers, some guys are coming in, whether it be Connor from WVU or our freshman. He gets them ready, and he keeps them at ease. But he's a football guy at heart. So
you could tell that from the episode is he's more of a football coach than he is a baseball
100%. And he's a guy that's going to get after you. But during the game, he just sits back and is very supportive, and even to the point where, like, if somebody's having a tough day, he may take him aside and talk to him a little bit. But I think he stayed involved because he enjoys it. We have a good time, whether it be as a team or the coaching staff. He has a grandson, or he had sons that played, so that kept him in it. And now he has a grandson coming up through that is a phenomenal athlete that keeps him going. But I told him, I said, he travels, 30 minutes a day back and forth, coming over. And some of the jokes I've heard a million times, to where I know he's going to the Empire about missed calls and cell phone. And but for the most part, he, the umpires look for him because he's at first base, and looking for new material or whatever it may be. But he's just, like I say, he's been around the program as long as I have, and he's not he can be a funny guy when he wants to be, but he also can be an enforcer and very, very competitive. Also, which is good for us because he was our pitching coach for years as well. But now he's a good guy.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now was one of the best things that happened to you?
Like I say, when I started out, if I had found, and I was a full-time substitute my first year out when I came back from Amsterdam in a local high school that I competed against, and I was the assistant women's basketball coach. And I knew I had to get out of women's basketball. There were just so many emotions and so many things that I'm 22 years old or 23 years old, and I knew that was not my direction. But if I had found a teaching job, I probably would have stayed at that level. And then, like I said, when I came here to Slippery Rock, I came into the town here and I was looking for the one phone booth they told me to go to. And I was like, maybe a year. We'll be here a year and then we'll go somewhere else. And then it got to 5. And then we took some weekend trips and had to make decisions whether we were going to go to the next level. And then family, gets involved to where, and I had tenure, and that's probably, I'm not, I don't believe in it, but
it helps though. It helps.
I definitely, I had it. And, as a family, with 3 children and, it's tough just to pick up and go to, down south or wherever we were looking at the time. So that would have been the only difference would possibly have been moving up to Division One. And then the school here, my teaching, and then I taught my first 23 years with the coaching. Basically, I got paid as a teacher, not as a coach. And then we built the stadium and it parlayed into where it was just all coaching, which I don't even consider a job anymore compared to what I used to do, teaching and coaching and wearing all the different hats, to where, it's an enjoyment, to come to the field every day. And even the recruiting, like I said, we have other guys recruiting as well. And it's not a chore. It's, still a passion, still love baseball, whether it be a pro game, whether it be a high school game or amateur game, it's still baseball.
Do you have any evening or morning routines that you fall back on that you like? I mean, you've been doing this a long time. You're in great shape. Do you have any morning or evening routines that?
When I'm healthy and I don't have an old age ailment, whatever, a joint, it's, I try to get a workout in. We're usually, like in the off season, our guys, we're usually lifting at 6, so we're there with them 3 or 4 times a week. And then from there, you can actually do yours after or whatever. But again, I didn't run. I wasn't a big runner, but I did run, and probably now I go more to the elliptical just because of some joint. Yeah. And then the lifting, I still lift, but I'm a little bit smarter.
How often are you lifting? How often do you lift?
A couple times a week.
So you're getting strength training. They do. When you look at longevity, like the research on strength training is better than anything else that you can do is strength training. And a lot of people don't do it. Like, I know people want to get on the treadmill, but like even just 2 days a week of
you get weak.
Of just, it doesn't have to be heavy. Just move some weight.
And the thing is, you could do multiple sets of push-ups. Now I know I'm smarter that my shoulder with 2 operations is just not going to work. And like I say, I enjoy throwing BP. I used to enjoy throwing BP every single day, 400, 500, 600 pitches. And after 2 surgeries, I'm smarter. So now I throw it on Billy he's throwing every day, and I'll throw like every other day or every third day, and still love hitting fungos, but elliptical, big on the elliptical. And
are you just getting on it and going? Are you doing intervals when you're on the elliptical? How are you?
Everything.
You're doing everything. You're mixing it up.
Different things just to keep it fresh. Yep. And then, like I say, I taught the fitness here in the physical education for years, and we even at Springfield, we would do the circuit workouts, and then after that it was the big Nautilus at the time, and now it's pretty much, like I said, we're pretty much all free weights, and we really haven't had a strength and conditioning coach ever here. It's been the coaches that have developed it, but you can get online and take some information from guys.
I enjoyed that piece. I know everybody's like, well, you got to be certified. I felt like it helped me. I was a better coach because I was having to pay attention 100%. To all of that stuff. And I think it helped you with practice planning because you're having to stay on top of it. You understand what they're going through in the weight room a little bit more, so you can tailor your practice plans a little bit more around their heavier lifting days. It's just easier. It streamlines that communication piece.
And yeah, they had the fall, like right now they finished up last week, the week before finals, and then when they leave here Friday or Saturday, they'll have a program, weight program for over the break. And again, 15 years ago, you might have had a few guys that didn't experience weightlifting in high school or didn't lift a lot. Very seldom do you have anybody that's coming in now that hasn't had some background. A lot of the travel teams or the travel organizations, and we have some outstanding travel programs in our area that are full-time, multiple guys that they incorporate that into their workouts during the winter as well. So most of the guys that are coming in are on some type of program already, and we're just adding to it. But I think it's important that as a coach that you can still, if I couldn't throw BP, I couldn't hit a fungo, or those things, I probably wouldn't think about staying in coaching as long, but I enjoy it. I just get more feedback when I'm throwing BP to a hitter or I'm hitting ground balls that I can see their actions. especially at the plate. I know the pitch they want and the pitch, and it's BP, but at the same time, I can get and try to help a little bit more than just throwing out information behind them, behind the turtle or whatever. If I have a choice, I'm throwing BP and I'm hitting rather than just sitting back watching.
Me too. I needed to be in there. Hey, you had a counseling degree. Did you have to go back and get any extra schooling to be able to teach PE then? Did you have to?
No, I came straight out at Springfield. Like say, even when I came out of high school, my mentor there, that Dr. Robert Coakley I was talking about that played at Springfield and was trying to get me to go to Springfield, I didn't care about college. All I wanted to do was play baseball. So, I started looking at, degrees, and physical education I thought would be the one that would be the best to go along with that. So I was looking, at Florida Southern, had an opportunity at Murray State, but I heard the school at that time, Slippery Rock, and then I heard Cortland. The three in the area here were pretty much Springfield, Cortland, and Slippery Rock. And I'm thinking, well, I don't even know what a Slippery Rock is. So forget that. And Springfield was 45 minutes from my house. And it probably opened more doors, the education at Springfield, because they're so highly recognized.
It's a great program. If you're not on that side, but the amount of research that has come out of Springfield, it's a lot of research.
It's unbelievable. And the amount, actually, just the background, I was able to teach basically K through 12, anything, not just physical education, science, math, but when I came out of Oklahoma City and I went to the interview, one of the first questions they gave me potentially the class schedule that I would have, and fitness, that was no problem. Basketball and all the activity classes they had at the time and the personal fitness. And then they got to the whitewater rafting, and then I've done it all my life. I was on a lake. I fished on my lake in a boat, so there was some things I kind of ad-libbed a little bit. But the teaching side of it, and then I kind of expanded because I went back. They wanted me to get my doctorate, so I was going to WVU for sport management and got my 30-some credits above that, and then had to make a decision at that time whether I was going to do a year, at sabbatical or whatever to finish it up with my dissertation and things. And I remember meeting with the vice president saying, well, you're not going to want to coach all your life. You're going to, want to go into teaching. And I just played the game. And I'm like, if there's anything I want out of teaching and just coaching. And it worked out because I stepped back once I got tenure. I only needed like 3 or 4 different classes, but the doctorate, I didn't feel like really made me a better teacher or a better coach or whatever. And, but the counseling, I don't think the counseling, it helped me as a person and for my players, but I think I got the job 100%. I got the job because most of the physical education teachers here had like Springfield, in like headlights. They thought that was, the best thing. Yeah. And a couple of the faculty, new faculty from Springfield, and, it worked out that way.
Is this convention going to be different for you going into the ABCA Hall of Fame? Is this one going to be different?
Like I said, I've sat through a lot of them. I mean, it's Nashville. Nashville's I like Nashville better than anywhere. I mean, for facilities and inside, I like the outdoors, so that's nice as well. It's I don't know. I don't really get caught up in all the the banquet stuff and the presentations and all that, but it's an honor. It's an honor, especially, from your peers. But I think I'll just enjoy it. There's going to be some people there, that I haven't seen. And then there's guys you only see once a year, or sometimes they can't make it and you only see them every 2 or 3 years. But it'll be an exciting time. And I always looked at the ABCA as like the pregame, gets you jump started. It gets you jump started into the season. You just, not that you have to have any fuel to get ready, but it just seems like that's the beginning of the year when everything starts and everybody's talking about their squad. And, like I say, you learn more from conversation a lot of times, outside the clinic in the
That's how it was
restaurants or
last
bars.
weekend. I spoke at the North Carolina Coaches Clinic, and we got going after the event. The
Yeah,
coaches
it's
social
unbelievable.
afterwards, we got going, and it was great.
Yeah, it's special that way, and but it'll be a fun time, and like I say, it's right around the corner.
Yeah. What are some final thoughts, or something I should have asked you that I didn't?
Uh, how many years I'm going to keep doing it?
I don't ever ask that because hopefully guys like you just keep going, and hopefully it
Like I
ends how
said,
you want it to end. Like you don't always get that opportunity to finish it off like you want to. I mean, we all know that in the college setting. Sometimes you don't always get to end it how you want. So my hope for every coach out there is that you get to finish it how you want to finish it.
definitely. And like I said, I could finish tomorrow, and I'd say that I've had a great experience, great life with baseball. But as long as like I say, as long as I'm healthy, as long as I can do the things that I like to do with the batting practice and the fungos and staying in shape. And not grabbing a rake and I like I say, I'm with those guys that are still, dragging their fields because it's a lot of extra work that you take away from coaching. So, whether it's 1 year or whether it's 5 years or whatever, and it's straight baseball and not teaching, and I love the teaching. It's just the administrative side of it, that's the hardest part. But, no, I'd like to say I just want to continue to have a competitive program and try to have an impact. You're not going to have an impact on every player, but have an impact on one or two guys each year that maybe decide to go into coaching. We've had a number of guys, our players, that have gone on to whether it be coaching high school, college, or even pro. We have one of our former players now that's with the Astros in their organization as a pitching coach. We have Matt Jones, like I say, that's at Shippensburg, and I'm missing a number of people, but we just trying to make an impact but trying to run a program at a high level, but at the same time have a lot of fun doing it, both for the player and for the coaches.
Thanks for your time, Coach. I'm looking forward to seeing you in
No,
Nashville.
thank you. I look forward to seeing you in Nashville.